Good evening, students. Hope you have gone through my previous videos, and the last one that I shared was about the ER diagram, and we had started with the unit 2. There was a couple of important terminologies and couple of concepts regarding the ER diagrams that I shared with you in the previous video. Hope you have understood that, and let's see from there on about the same thing, that is the ER diagram. So this was the last slide that we actually understood, and this is the company database that we derived with the help of the diagram, obviously. And if you can just see that there were a couple of things which I will just rewind for you. Is that we had an employee entity. So this is about these are all entities. So this is an entity, department as well as an entity. If you can just see, project is an entity, and then dependent is an entity. And then there are relationships between the different entities which we had derived. And for that matter, works for is an entity, employee works for the department. Then we had employee manages the department. So we have the connectivity between them. And then we had the department controls the project. So you have control the relationship and the project. And then we had the employee has employee and dependent table are being joined together with the help of the relationship that is dependence of. So these dependents are the dependents of this some particular employees. And then to remind you, to any entity there are some related attributes. So these are all attributes of the employee table. And the attributes which are underlined are known as the primary key for that particular table or that particular entity. So for that, in the same reference, number here is a primary key again. Now these two are primary key in this particular table, and if you can just see that independent table, there is none of the attributes qualified to become a primary key or the key attribute. In that case, dependent the table is a weak entity. That is why it is double rectangular box. Double rectangular box. Okay. So that is why it has been drawn with that. So in that case, one of the attributes of the dependent table and a combination of another attribute from employee table will help us identify the dependent separately. That means for any particular employee, the name of the dependent, one particular employee from this table and one particular dependent from this table are related via the dependence of relationship. That is how we will fetch these dependent table, the different rows. And then there are different type of relationships, as we can see here. There is N-to-1 relationship, one-to-one relationship, many-to-many, which is M and N. Okay, one-to-many relationship, that is 1 and N. N and 1 I have already told you, many-to-one relationship. So these are kind of the other things that we had also seen. Now there's one more concept that we need to understand is that the table, when we draw this diagram, Then complete participation and partial participation is what is important for us to understand. So when we draw a double line to represent any relationship, for that matter, these two double lines, then in that case it is complete participation of department table in the relationship. Okay, that means all the departments compulsorily have to be managed by some manager who is going to be an employee of that company. Okay, and vice versa, it is got a single line on this side. If you can just observe, there is a single line on this side. That means that every employee need not be a manager for any department. Couple of employees, few employees are going to be managers, not all. So it is not complete participation for that. That is why you can see that there is only one single line between the employee and the managers, the relationship. So every employee is not a manager for any department. It is few employees only. So it is not complete. Not all the employees are participating in that relationship. Now look for some look up here. Employees works for the department. So you can see there is complete participation here. There is complete participation here, and there is complete participation here, indicated by the fact that it has double lines here and it has double lines here. That means all the employees have to work for relationship, work for some or the other department. Okay, and every department uh, has to every department has to have the working employees for it, correct? So either side there is complete participation. So all departments have to have employees and employees have to work in the department. So it is complete participation of both these sides. That is why double line. Similarly, you can derive the meaning. Not everything I can tell you here, but then you can very easily, with on the lines that I have told you can very easily derive the meaning out of these all lines. Now, if you can just observe, employee is related with works on the relationship to the project, the entity. So you can see both the sides, it is complete participation. So you can see double lines here and double lines here. So in that case, meaning goes the same. Project works on employee and every project is worked on by employees and every employee works on the project. Both the sides, it's complete participation. So this is what is meant by those double lines. Then if there's anything left out for reminder is okay. So here you can see number of employees. Number of employees is a derived attribute. That means its value will be derived from something, some other attributes. Any attribute whose values can be derived from some other attributes is known as attribute, and that is why it is as indicated by the dotted lines here. So this was what was covered last time. Hope you have understood all this. So let's go ahead and discuss couple of other things now. Discussion about the relationship types. So you can if you have observed all these attributes and entities for which the diagram was drawn in the company database, if you have understood it well, then you must have observed that there are couple of entities, for example, employee and department, wherein they can have more than one type of relationship shared between them. So if you have observed it, then there is a manages relationship between the same two entities, that is the employee and department, and there's another relationship which is indicated as works for. So an employee works for the department. So you can have distinct relationships, and you can have for each relationship there will be distinct instances as in values. Okay, so this is quite possible. So this has to be remembered. Now another concept which comes up is what do you mean by recursive relationship? Okay, what do you mean by recursive relationship? Now if you remember from your any of your programming languages, you must have come across the term recursive function. Now please recall, what do you mean by recursive function? A function which calls itself, okay, a function which calls itself with different set of arguments or parameters every time would be called a recursive function. So similarly, in a relationship here, you must have observed that let me just take you back to that diagram. You, if you just see here, this is what is recursive relationship. That means the relationship supervisor is again and again referring back to the same entity employee. So it is between the same entity employees. So a few of the employees are supervisors and few of the employees are supervising. Okay, so the relationship supervision is between the same entity, both the sides. Couple of the employees from the same entity are supervisee and the others are supervisors. So this type of relationship is known as recursive relationship, wherein the same entity is called with the help of that particular relationship. So the relationship is built between the same entity. So this is what is meant by the recursive relationship. If you can just observe here, they have given the example, supervisor who is in boss role and supervisee who is a subordinate role. Both are being played by the same employees of the same entity set. Okay. So this is about the recursive relationship type. Okay. So that was about the recursive relationships only. Now let's go ahead about the recursive relationship. How do we, depict it? If I have to show recursive relationship and I have, set up or decided that couple of whoever has the supervisor role, will be indicated by number 1, and whoever are playing the supervisory role or subordinate role will be number 2. So let's observe here. So employee is the same entity. Some couple of employees here will be in the supervisor role, who will be numbered as 1, and couple of employees will be numbered as 2 who are playing the subordinate role. Now, supervision is the relationship here. Okay, so let's see here. So, employee number 1 is playing role 2. Role 2 as in, if you can just recall, role 2 is subordinate role. In which relationship? He is talking about relationship 1, which is with whom? Which is with employee E5. Okay, if you can just relate back this particular line here. So E5 is in role 1. So E5 is who? 1 is what? Supervisor role. So E5 is supervisor in the relationship R1 with whom? With employee E1, and E1 is playing the role 2. That is, role 2 is the subordinate role. Do we understand this? So we are talking about two employees, E1 and E5. in the relationship R1, wherein E1 is playing role 2. 2 is nothing but the subordinate role, okay? Subordinate role, subordinate role, and E5 is playing role 1, that is the supervisor role. Okay, supervisor role. So both E1 and E5 are contributing or participating in relation R1 with two different roles. So they are from E1 and E5 are both from the same entity. That is why this is a recursive relationship. That means it is calling the entities or the the values from the same entity set. That is the employee entity. Okay, so this is what it is. Let's see another example. I'll just clear the screen for you. Let's see some other example here. Okay, let's take E1 itself. Now you can observe E1 is having another relationship but playing one role. One is for the supervisor. Okay, and that role 1 is contributing to the relationship R2. Okay, and that R2 is being shared with the employee E2. Okay, now E2 is playing what role? If you can just observe here, E2 is playing role 2. What is role 2? Role 2 is nothing but subordinate. Okay, so E2 is subordinate in the relationship R2 for E1. E1 is having supervisor role. Okay, so these relationships, this is just relationship between any two pair of entities. So R1 is one relationship, R2 is another relationship, 3. They've been just numbered, dot, 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 that means continue. How many employees, those many relationship. So it is not necessary it is just for clarification or for distinction that we have numbered the different relationship with different numbers. So R1 is the relationship between E1 and E5. R2 is the relationship between E1 and E2. Okay, this is what is the representation of recursive relationship. Hope you have understood this. Now let's come to the weak entity type. Now I have already explained you as to what is weak entity prior to this. Any entity which does not have a key attribute would be known as weak entity. So let me just underline and show you entity that does not have a key attribute. What do you mean by key attribute? Key attributes are the attributes which help them identify different values or different rows within the table. So that is what is key attribute. Now you do not have a key attribute means that none of the attributes within the table qualify for it. Now let me just remind you what kind of table that would be. So let's go back here. So if you can just see dependent table here, dependent the attribute has which all dependent the entity has which all attributes. Name is there, sex is there, birth date is there, relationship is there. Now we do understand that name can be same for different different employees or dependents. This is dependent. So yes, for dependents also the name can be same. Two people can have the same name as Rahul or Shushma or whatever. So sex also is not female and male. So definitely it is not an attribute which can qualify as a. Now birth date, you can have couple of them having the same birth date. Relationship, what kind of relationship it has, this dependent has with the employee. So definitely there's not much variety that you can have, and it is a repetitive attribute, repetitive values attribute. So none of these attributes qualify for becoming a key attribute. So what can be done? How do I just, how do I recognize this dependent? So that is why it is a weak entity. An entity which does not have key attributes is known as weak entity. Okay, so this is what was what I wanted to show you. So let's go back to where we were studying is weak entity. So let's see here is an entity that does not have a key attribute is known as weak entity, and definitely it is double rectangular box. Now, how can we identify? Now the question comes, how can we identify a weak entity? I mean, rows within the weak entity. When I do not have the primary key, how do I identify? Suppose there is a student table. I've been giving you examples. Hope you are able to relate to that. Supposingly there is a student table and there are a couple of attributes. Maybe there is a US in the US in the column. Then there is name the column, and there are a couple of other columns. Supposingly I want to fetch one of your names, then what can I do? I can use USN very well to fetch any of your names. That is what we usually do at we teachers do, or in the department office also we do. Why is USN given is because many of you can have names as same. If there is marks 1 or marks 2, many of you can get the same marks also. So how do I recognize one particular person, one particular row for that matter? Then I can use the USN to identify you. USN number 1 will be for only one person. USN number 2 will be for only one person. And 3 and 4 and so on. Okay, so it is a unique identification. That means non-repetitive numbers are here. So unique values actually are here in this, in one particular column, or maybe a combination of columns. So here I'm showing you one column. So this is what is actually the scenario what we are looking for. This is an ideal situation. Now, for example, in the weak entity, we do not have anything. So what am I talking about? What am I trying to hint on when I say that an entity is a weak entity? That means that that particular table does not have any column which has unique value like this, which can identify one particular row separately. So this is what is meant by weak entity. Now the question arises, how do I then recognize one particular row? Supposingly I do not have the USN column, I just have name, marks and all that, and I want to fetch one particular row. Imagine that this primary key is not there. Then how do I recognize? Then it is said that a partial key would be selected from that particular table. So maybe name is the partial key, and that then you will have related to identifying entity type. So for example, from the dependent table, name was the attribute which was behaving as a partial key, and a value from the employee table and a combination of partial key. So what will happen? Partial key from the weak entity, sorry, partial key from the weak entity plus one attribute value from the main entity, from the main entity as in an entity to which it is related. Okay, so I'll just call it for my convenience main entity. So combination of these two, partial key and some attribute from the main entity, will help us recognize that particular one particular row within the weak entity. So this is what is weak entity explanation. Now next is constraints or on relationships. We have seen lot of relationship types. They are known as cardinality ratio. They are known as cardinality ratio. Okay, so you can see one-to-one relationship. We have seen one, and I had shown you diagram also about it. So one-to-one relationship can be written as 1:1 relationship. Okay, that shows the cardinality ratio. One to many is represented as 1:n. Many to one is represented as n:1. Many to many is represented as m:n. Now I had told you prior to this that there is participation, whether it is zero participation, minimum zero participation, or it is also known as not existence dependent, or it is maximum participation, one or more. Then in that case, it is double line. Okay. So we saw within the relationship when we were connecting between the two entities and we had a relationship shown by the diagonal box, then we had single line participation, not double line participation. This I have told you earlier. So we have seen couple of examples there. So single line means that it is not existence dependent. That means the entity's existence is not dependent on that relationship. That means all employees are not managers. So if he is not a manager, he is not an employee, or he will not have a relationship with the department. That's not the case. So it is zero dependency, or it is not existence dependency. Its existence does not depend on that particular relationship. He might be a manager, he might not be a manager, but either which case, he is an employee of that. He's an employee and works for certain department. Okay, maybe not in manager's capacity, but then yes, he is an employee of certain department. So this is what is zero participation shown by single line. Then it can be one or more participation. Then it is double line. That means mandatory participation. It has to. I mean, every department has to be managed by somebody. So it is a compulsory fact that every department has to have, the participation from an employee as a manager. Not all employees, but at least one manager has to be there. So one or more. So it is double line. So existence dependent. Okay. So it is compulsory, mandatory participation. That is known as existence dependent or mandatory participation. So this is what is the single line or double line. Okay. So this is, if I have to show you now let's see here. I was telling you this example that this is shown in single line, this is shown in single line, and this is being shown in double line. Okay, this is because every department, it is mandatory that it has a manager, manages. So it has to have a manager. So every department has to have a manager, one or more. Okay, one or more, one or more participation. Here it is, employee is a manager, employee is a manager to the department. It is not compulsory that all the employees are managers to the department, so not complete participation. It is not complete participation. Not all employees are managers. They need not be. This is what is the zero participation or non-existence participation. Hope I have made it clear to you as to what is the single line and double line representation here. So this is all about the cardinality ratios. So different minimal cardinality ratios that we have already spoken and discussed in the previous video are these. And then we talked about single line and double line and what is the meaning of those. They've just given example about the different type of relationships. You can just go through that slide. However, I just summarize summarize here the different shapes and symbols that we had used for the ER diagram. So for an entity, we had the rectangular box. For weak entity, we had double rectangular box. For relationship, we used the diagonal box. For the in identifying relationship, we had a double diagonal box. Then we can represent the attributes in ovals connected to the entities with the help of the line. Okay. Then we have key attributes being underlined. So you just underline that attribute, it becomes a key attribute. If you have multiple values for certain attribute, then phone number, for example, if you have phone number, then people have a lot of phone numbers. So that particular entity, the attribute might be having a lot of values for one particular person. That it is multi-valued. Then you have composite attribute wherein you can just join to that attribute the different sub attributes. Then that is known as composite attribute. Right attribute is shown with the help of the dotted lines. Then you have total participation. So you have single line and double line here. So that is total participation and the zero participation. And then you have cardinality ratios. So we have been talking how we would represent the cardinality ratio over the connectivity that you're showing in the relationship. You just write 1:1 or 1:n. So this relationship here is 1:n relationship. That means one to many. Okay. I might have n to 1, so I might write like that. Or you have many to many, so m:n, okay? Or 1:1, sorry, 1:1. So these are the different ways of representing the cardinality ratios, okay? This we haven't seen as yet, but this is about how many minimum or maximum values that it can have, so that we will see it in the coming slides too, upcoming slides here. So keep it pending for some time. I will just show you here another representation here. So this is about the various important, the shapes that we use in the ER diagrams. Yes, this is what is the minimum and the maximum value concept. Now, the first value that we saw here, if you can just keep this in mind so that when I explain you in the further slide, you will have something on your mind. You can just have between the relationship and the entities. Supposedly, this is what is the relationship and this is an entity. I might just have a bracket here wherein I will segregate the minimum value from the comma the maximum value. So this hasn't come properly. Let me just write in the bracket. I will write minimum comma maximum the value. Okay. So this is what I am going to explain in the next slide here. And where is it written? It is written for every relationship here. So this is what it is. Okay. So just show you here. Okay. So here. So you just write it like this. So this is what I'm going to explain in the next slide to come. So it just specifies, the least minimum and the most maximum relationship instances in R. Okay. What does that mean? We will just look into it further here. Now, if you can just recall, the same two entities. One was the employee entity, okay, had a relationship which is manages with the department. Okay. Now, when I'm representing the relationship via these connecting lines, I might just write between the employee and the managers 0 to 1. What will this mean is 0 is the minimum value and 1 is the maximum value, because I have just now told you the first value would be termed as minimum and 1 is the maximum. Okay. So 0 means there might be 0 employees who are managers to the department, correct? Not all employees will be managers, or 1. Okay, so to a particular department there might be 1 employee who is a manager to the department. So minimum and maximum. Now on the other side, wherein I'm talking about the department entity and the relationship managers, I might just write 1 and 1. What would that mean is that the department has 1 minimum person who is managing the department from the employee entity. And where is the manager from? From the employee entity. And maximum what? Every department will have maximum also 1 manager who is from the employee entity. Manager is going to be from the employee entity. So minimum also 1 and maximum also 1. So this is what is meant by, that's explained exactly here. So it says 0 and 1 and 1 and 1. Okay. So this is what is the minimum and the maximum participation. Okay. So that I can represent using the, see, it's given here, all minimum and maximum notation. Okay. So let's see in the further slide, see here. So let's see the same example as I had drawn it there. The same has been drawn here. There is an employee entity, there is a department entity, and they have the relationship which is managers. Okay. Employee has 0 to 1 relationship with the managers. I mean, it is contributing 0 to 1 with the relationship managers, and department is contributing 1 and 1. What do you mean by that? That minimum participation of every employee in manager's relationship is 0. Not every employee is a manager, so it is 0. Couple of employees are not contributing to this relationship, so it's not complete participation. It is minimum is 0 participation. And what is the maximum? 1 of the employees will be a manager to the department, so it is 1. Now what about department? Every department has to be managed by some manager from employee entity, so 1 participation. Maximum how many? Maximum also 1 manager can be there. This relationship is making it clear that yes, there can be only 1 manager who is from the employee entity. So this is 1 and 1. Now similarly, if you remember, I have told you that between the same 2 entities, if you can just observe here, the employee and the department, you can have different relationships. Is it possible? We had talked about it in the previous slide, that employee is having managers relationship with department, employee is having works for relationship with the department. Possible? That's not what I'm trying to justify, but just trying to recall or remind you that this is quite possible. Now let's go ahead and talk about what's shown here as 1 is 1 and 1 and 1 and n. What does this mean? Employee works for the department. Okay. So employee, how many employees can work for the department? Every employee has to work. So 1 maximum works for how many departments? 1 department. So minimum 1 department, maximum 1 department. What about this? It says department, okay, an employee can have zero relationship and minimum zero, maximum one. Sorry, minimum one and maximum one. What about department? Department has to have how many work for it? Department has how many works for from the employee? It has to have at least one employee, and maximum how many employee? Maximum in employees. So minimum one, every department has to have works for relationship. That means it has to have how, so I'm talking about these two. So a department will have how many employees? One employee, and maximum how many employees? N employees. So 1 is to N employees. So this is what is the meaning of minimum and maximum. Okay. So this is how I can as well, elaborate my ER diagram by giving such details. So that's also possible. So let's see the same ER diagram which we have already seen has been improvised now. So what's different between what's the difference between the previous ER diagram and this ER diagram? Now in the previous ER diagram, if you remember, there was complete participation and zero participation, wherein there was a single line between any two entities. So there was single line or double line, between the entities. Then that has been replaced by now such detailing wherein you are talking about minimum and maximum. This is 1 comma n we have just now seen. It is just misprinting. The same misprinting is there in your book also. So take it as 1 and n. If it is 4 and n, that means every department has to have how many minimum employees? 4 minimum employees. But then that's not the problem given for the company database. So we'll not take it for granted it is 4. Had it been specified in the problem definition that minimum 4 employees have to be there, we will take it for granted that it is 4 minimum and maximum n. But however, it has not been specified, so we will not take it for granted. Okay. So all that has been improvised. If you can just see it, all single and double lines have been eradicated, and you can see 1 and 1 relationship, 1 n relationship, then 1 and n. Minimum, maximum. This is also minimum, maximum. So this is also minimum, maximum. Minimum and maximum. So this is how the ER diagram has been changed or improvised using this particular. So it says ER diagram for the company schema with structural constraints specified using minimum maximum notations and role names. So you have to be careful, and this is another full-fledged question in your question papers, wherein you might be queried as to draw ER diagram for some problem definition which has been given. It might specify as to give minimum and max notation in it, or they might just tell complete participation or zero participation, draw using that. There are various other varieties also. We are going to keep seeing them as we come across them. So you have to be precise in reading what has been asked in your question paper and answer accordingly. So students, I'll just take a break here, and we're going to come up with the next, the subtopic, that is UML class diagrams, which is another way of representing any database. So ER diagram was one, UML will be the next one that we will take up. However, we will take a break, and with this video, I will pause here for today. And please go through the ER diagram detailings, and we will take up UML in the next video, upcoming video. Have a nice day and take care of yourself.